So I was back in the old country for a few weeks and decided to visit the midlands town of Athlone for a day of beer, wandering around, football of course. Athlone town were playing Longford Town, the Midlands derby, or El Clasico as they like to say. So being in Athlone, it would have been amiss of me not to visit Sean's bar in the old town next to the castle. Sean's bar is apparently the oldest bar not just Ireland but in the whole wide world, dating back to 900 AD. So I ventured into Sean's bar and was lucky enough to have a quick chat with Timmy O Donovan, who works there. Now Timmy was behind the bar at the time, but he was kind enough to take a time out to go over some of the history of the pub with me. So before I play the chat, I just would like to say a few things. I had a great day out in Athlone. It's a nice enough town in the centre of the country, beside the majestic Shannon, and the locals were all very friendly, and I had some decent boozers, and overall it was a good day out. As for Sean's bar, I was well impressed with Timmy's knowledge of the history of the bar and also his wider knowledge of the local area. It kind of stirred a yearning for me to reconnect with Irish history, as the passion from Timmy rubbed off on me, you could say. It's a little disappointing, I think, that ancient Irish history, our history, seems to be neglected these days in school or in the mainstream media and on TV. We all know about the Vikings and the ancient Egyptians or various English kings and queens and other people's history, but less so of our great culture we once had, about our land of saints and scholars that revigorated Europe after the Dark Ages. I learned a lot from Timmy, especially about the importance of Clonmacnoise and of the Viking activity in the centre of the country, something I hadn't known a whole lot about previously. So I appreciate people like Timmy keeping the old history alive and with energy and passion, passing it on to the general public. So big thank you to Timmy for the chat. He also serves a great pint as well, and by the way, the bar do their own beer. I had one of their stouts and a red ale, which were both crackers, and I had a drop of their own whiskey, Sean's bar whiskey, which went down very well too. So just one more thing before I start. The camera angle is a bit low. My tripod is just too damn small, and so I'm not secretly recording. It looks like that, but anyhow, it's not the BBC, and production values are what they are. So enjoy. Thank you.
Well, you're very, very welcome to Sean's. My name is Timmy, and we're just going to take a little brief run through the history and origin of the bar. The bar itself dates back to 900 AD, dated by the National Museum and certified by the Guinness Book of World Records.
Okay.
As you may have been coming through the bar, you might have noticed part of the old walls on display, which are made of what's called wattle and wicker, which is interwoven hazel sticks held together with horsehair and clay, and that's what the whole premises downstairs is made from.
And that's near the entrance, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
Right halfway down the bar there.
Okay.
You might have also noticed the slope on the floor. Actually, the original drainage system where the water would flow in the front, flow out the back, and it would put sawdust down to soak it up. So that's the tradition of the sawdust on the ground.
Wow, okay.
The section of walls that you viewed downstairs actually came from renovations in 1968, and the rest of the walls from the renovations are on display with the National Museum.
Okay.
Along with the old coins that Lewin, who was the very first person to build the bar here, in and around 900, minted.
Is that related to the castle, the Lewin?
Lewin Gallery. This is how Athlone got its name.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so he minted his own coins for barter or exchange with his customers. They called these coins tokens, and the value of each token depended on how much silver actually went into the making of each individual one. The tokens from here are dated by the National Museum to 900 and pre-900, and are also with the National Museum itself.
Okay.
Along here then is called Main Street, and the old cobbled Main Street that actually led to the original crossing point of the River Shannon is buried beneath the beer garden and runs right out to the original crossing point itself. Now the reason Lewin, who was the first person to build the bar here, situated the bar here is you have the River Shannon here, which is fed by Lough Ree. Lough Ree is a huge lake. It's 18 miles long by 13 miles wide, and it funnels into the River Shannon here at Athlone. So you would have to come the whole way around the lake, and the very first crossing point you came to was directly at the back door here, and that's why he situated the bar here, and he guided people across the old ford. He actually built the bar on what was called the ancient ford of antiquity, a crossing point that dates back to the Bronze Age. But it was back in 900 when he built the bar here. Then a settlement built up around the pub. People often say about Athlone, it was the town that was built around the pub. They put the pub here first, and they built the town around it. That was back in 900. Then in 1100, King Turlough O'Connor built the first wooden castle to guard this settlement. This settlement then became known in Irish as Oha Lewin, meaning the ford of Luan or the place of Luan. And today, Athlone in Irish is Athlone. So that's actually how the town got its name, from the very first person that built the bar here, right back in 900 AD. Now, we're dated by the National Museum. We're certified by the Guinness Book of World Records as the oldest pub in Ireland.
Sticking up down. Have you got
we have our letter from the Guinness Book of World Records.
And is it downstairs?
It's downstairs, right beside parts of the old walls.
Okay.
Dating us right back to 900 and the oldest pub anywhere.
Okay.
The nearest pub that came anywhere close to us, and I went to visit this pub when we were dealing with the Guinness Book of World Records, is a pub in Nottingham in England called the Old Trip to Jerusalem. Fantastic old pub. Nottingham Castle is built on a cliff edge, and at the base of the cliff edge there's caverns or caves, and the pub is built around and back into these caverns and caves. Fantastic place. The Old Trip to Jerusalem. Its official Guinness Book of World Record dating is 1129. Our official Guinness Book of World Record dating is 900.
Yeah. And were you here when they actually came, the Guinness Book of Record guys?
Oh yeah, Sean Fitzsimons, the previous owner, was the very first person to engage and get all the information for the Guinness Book of World Records.
And was that a long, drawn-out process for them?
It was, yeah. You have to submit all your evidence.
Okay.
And it has to be fairly substantial for the Guinness Book of World Records to...
Okay. Did they have a few beers when they were here?
Not really, no, very, very efficient.
Okay.
There is a far more important piece of history located with Athlone here and Loughree, and that is the whole origin of whisky itself. Began here on Loughree, spread from Loughree right around the world, and this was the inspiration behind our whisky here at Sean's.
Okay, so you sell your own whisky here?
We have our own whisky here,
excellent,
yeah. And how it came about was, I'd be chatting to all the different groups or tours regarding the history of the bar, the history of Athlone. And one question I was always being asked, what did you drink back in those days? So 7 years ago we began research with the National Museum, through the annals or history of Clonmacnoise, with local historians, anybody who had written anything to do with Athlone, Loughree, its islands or its inhabitants over the centuries. And we came across an amazing piece of history right on our doorstep. The whole origin of whisky itself began here on Loughree. And we have fully researched this over 7 years.
And what did you come upon? What was?
Basically, distilling itself began in the Middle East in and around 900, or in around 500, where they distilled perfumes and aromas. The Moors, who were traders from northern Spain, had trade links with the Middle East at the time. They brought back the art of distilling these perfumes and aromas to northern Spain. The Irish monks happened to be there on their missions at the time, and somehow discovered we drink it. It smelled lovely. They in turn brought back the art of distilling this spirit with them back to Ireland and back to the two main monasteries in the whole country at the time, which were located here right beside us on Loughree. The very first monastery was located right in the middle of Loughree on the island of Inishkillen, and the remains of St. Kieran, 7 churches remain there today. Kieran left the island in 549 and he went downriver from us here to form his second monastery, which he called Clonmacnoise. Now Clonmacnoise went on to become a very famous place in its day. It would have held a status, something similar to what the Vatican holds. It was the centre of education for the whole of Europe, where the kings and queens of Europe all sent their children to be educated here by the monks from Clonmacnoise. Very, very famous place. Now what the monks from both of these monasteries done with this spirit to make it palatable, they mixed it with local produce and honey from the island of Inishkillen, and it became their main form of trade. Now they traded massively in this over the centuries, and as a result of their trade, this spirit spread from Loughree right around the world. Now what they traded for was mainly gold. Gold in order to make the religious artefacts, their chalices and their crosses, all of which can be seen at the National Museum today, having come from here on Loughree. Here's a very interesting one. The monks from Inishkillen also went on their missions to Scotland, beginning with the island of Iona, where they wrote the Book of Kells. They went from Iona to mainland Scotland, bringing the art of distilling with them, and this is how Scottish whisky began, coming directly from the monks from Inishkillen.
The one like to hear that.
We love telling this one to the Scots. And it gets even funnier when they check it on their phone and realise they cannot argue with the history that is behind the Book of Kells.
It is there, all right.
Shock, horror, they didn't invent whisky. We did.
Well, it makes sense with the movement of the people.
That's exactly how it began. So that's how Scottish whisky began. The monks also traded with all the different factions that were based here on Loughree throughout the centuries, right down to and including the Vikings themselves. When the Vikings first came to Ireland, they came down the east coast, they came down the west coast. They came up the River Shannon, through Limerick, Right by our back door here, out onto Loughree, where they formed the biggest Viking settlement in the whole country, called Thisdrinkinglife. Thisdrinkinglife is only based 8 kilometres away from us here on the shores of Loughree.
Okay.
And actually, the biggest hoard of Viking gold ever found in the world was found here on Hare Island, 10 minutes from us.
Wow.
The Viking...
They don't teach this stuff in school.
No, actually, well, I probably wasn't listening.
I didn't know. Sorry, I didn't know about that Thisdrinkinglife place.
Yeah,
I really
Thisdrinkinglife,
never heard of that before. Yeah, sorry.
Where was the number?
I'm sorry, I stopped you.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, the Vikings now found themselves dead centre Ireland, and they raided left, right, and centre at the time. But over a century, this Viking community became a settled community who interacted, traded, married with the locals, but also traded with the monks for their spirit. The Vikings loved their alcohol, Viking drinking horns, etc. They in turn brought the art of distilling with them from Loughree back to the Scandinavian countries, where it is still known today as aqua vitae or aqua vi, meaning the water of life.
Okay.
And that phrase was first coined and is written into the annals or history of Clonmacnoise right back in 549.
Okay. And is it written in their the Viking transcripts as well?
I can't tell you that one, I'm not sure.
But that's a
it's still
good
called
cross-reference.
aqua vitae, the water of life.
Yeah.
That's how it got to there. Now, if you check under Wikipedia, if you check the history or origin of whiskey, it will tell you that the very first ever written account of whiskey is aqua vitae, meaning the water of life, coming from the monks from Clonmacnoise.
Yeah.
This is not a story, it's actually...
Well, I know there's some connection with the religious orders and stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's how it got there. They even have the names of the Viking that took it from Loughree back to Iceland. His name was Eric the Red.
Wow.
He left Loughree because his clan at home in Iceland had fallen out with the other clans. He met with his son Leif Erikson. He took 25 longboats, their entire clan, they headed west. They discovered Greenland. They went from Greenland to land in Newfoundland. Now you can check on your phone under what's called Viking Saga. It will tell you the exact history of Leif Erikson and Eric the Red. It will show you what remains of his settlement today in Newfoundland. And it will tell you that he landed there 500 years before Christopher Columbus, tying in with the exact same time frame as when the monks were trading with the Vikings for their spirit. He brought it from Loughree to Iceland, Greenland and onto Newfoundland, where it spread down to Canada and eventually making its way down to the States, known as different names, White Lightning, Moonshine, for example. But the actual name whiskey comes directly from Loughree, right here beside us. Now, a lot of people mix this up completely. They think that the name whiskey comes from the Bourbon area of Kentucky. Two totally different products altogether. To get it way wrong. The name whiskey comes from here on Loughree, where the English armies of King Henry II and III were based here on Loughree at a place called Rindoon. Rindoon is only out the road here from us. And the remains of the old walled city are still there today. At the time, Rindoon was the biggest city outside of London. That'll tell you the vast size.
This history again.
That'll tell you the vast size of the armies that they had based here. Absolutely huge.
Right.
But the monks cashed in at this big time and traded hugely with these English armies. There's a record of a ship belonging to King Henry III leaving Loughree, and between both monasteries, the ship's entire cargo was whiskey only. They were not busy praying.
Wow.
The name whiskey then firstly comes from the monks from Clonmacnoise, who spoke Latin because it was the international language at the time. They taught in Latin. They called it aqua vitae, meaning the water of life. The name whiskey comes from the monks of Inniskillen, who spoke Irish. They called this spirit Ishkabaha, also meaning the water of life. But the English armies that they were trading with had a bit of a problem pronouncing Ishkabaha, especially after they had a few of them. So Ishkabaha went on to whiskey, and then on to whiskey. But it was going in such huge volumes to these English armies that the name whiskey stuck to it. And this is where the name whiskey comes from.
Very interesting.
Also right here beside us on Loughree.
Excellent,
So we said, hold on a second, we actually have the whole origin of whiskey here, right on our doorstep, and fully researched with us by local historians and the National Museum. So we went to West Cork Distillers. We wanted to work with a very genuine Irish whiskey distiller, so we went to West Cork, met with the distillers from West Cork, gave them all our information. We ended up coming back here to Loughree to see exactly what did the monks have available to them. What was the original ingredients that the monks had on the island to flavour the whiskey with? And that's how we flavoured our whiskey, only with what was available to the monks.
I'll have to try it down later on.
It's an extremely smooth whiskey. Then we left our whiskey to mature. Now, for whiskies to mature, a Scottish whisky takes 3 years to mature. An Irish whisky takes 3 years and 1 day to mature. Just to be a day older than Scots. That's where I'm coming from. So we left our whisky to mature for 4.5 years, as opposed to your normal.
Okay.
We began researching 7 years ago. We began distilling 6. We left it to mature for 4.5. We only have it back 1.5 years ago. Now, this could have gone horribly wrong, and I would not be sitting here talking to you.
No.
I'd be in the country. But we got it back anyway, and it came back an absolutely fantastic, smooth
good,
whiskey, and has gone crazy. So much so we will be in the very near future, we will be in both Canada and America. Only last week did we get confirmation from the Canadian government, who control all the liquor in the country, that they are taking our whisky with them in January.
And so how are you marketing? What's the name? Is it? Well, what's the name of it then?
Sean's.
So it's good, same as the bar then.
Yeah.
You're playing off both things.
Yeah, one complements the other.
Yeah. Okay.
So even next week now we are heading to Orlando. To a big trade show in Orlando, where we have lined up a number of importers and distributors to meet with us in regard to the distribution of our whisky.
Well, it's great that you have the history, and as you said, you got the original ingredients as well as much as you.
And what we do with the bottle of whisky, we give an information leaflet, and we encourage everybody to Google each area that we mention and look up each area that we mention, and you can actually follow the whole origin and whisky the whole way along.
That's interesting. Very good. So infamous and famous down through the years of.
Oh God,
probably too many to mention.
Say, we'd have music every night, so we would be renowned as an Irish music pub. We'd have you name any musician in the country, and they've probably been in here at some stage.
Well, I've heard it's a place for great crack in here every night.
It is. So we'd have all, even from Hot House Flowers down to U2, to you name it, they have been here.
And then the celebs come as well, don't they?
You don't know who's going to walk through the door. You could be chatting to anybody. And sometimes I don't even recognise who I'm talking to make it worse.
You're more into the history, I suppose.
You would be, yeah. But as I say, you don't know who you're going to meet. That door will open and you don't know who's going to come through.
Yeah, it's just like with John McCormack, because he's the famous tenor, wasn't he, from Athlone?
He was, yeah. And he was just born about 100 metres away from the bar. Just basically round the corner here from the bar. And there's a plaque there just outside of his house commemorating the birth of John McCormack.
Yeah, that's good. And Sean's bar, who's Sean?
Oh, it became known as Sean's Bar. In 1954, it was bought by a man called Sean O'Brien. And then in 1968, another Sean, a man from Dublin, Sean Fitzsimons, who would come down at the weekends. He had a barge here right at the back of the pub. The barge is actually still there and owned by his nephew, the Iron Lung. And they would be off in the barge for the weekends and they'd come back then having a few drinks in the bar. And he was there with his friends and they were having a bit of fun and a bit of slagging. And one of them said to Sean, "You should actually buy the bar, Sean. You wouldn't have to change the name on it or anything." And he stood up there and then and bought it.
Oh, very good.
And that was back in 1968. But it's been known as Sean since 1954, and we could never change the name of it now, or there'd be a lot of people walking around in circles looking for Sean's bar.
That's true. You must be fairly tired answering the same questions from people coming in all the time.
I actually enjoy talking to people and having a chat about the history of both whiskey and the pub itself.
Yeah, because I seen you were already talking to people when I came in. Resident historian.
I'd be called many things, but I wouldn't be called that now. Even there today, we had.
It's full of tourists down there. So
even there today, we had people from Croatia, Russia, Denmark, and America all sitting together at the one time.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty much it, Timmy. Thanks very much for that. That was very informative. And
I totally enjoyed the chat.
I'm really enjoying this stout. This is your guys' stout.
One of our own beers, yeah. How they came about was we'd have a lot of tourists. And one question I've always been asked, what local beer have you from the bar? We didn't have one. Or can we have a local beer from the town? So we didn't have one. So we went to a lot of small microbreweries, craft beer festivals, sampled this, sampled that, sampled everything. Couldn't remember what we sampled, and had a great time doing it. But we eventually got our own stout red ale and lager. And
Excellent.
we've all three of them covered now.
Could that be bought in the shops as well, or no? You're not,
No,
you haven't
no,
bought
just here
them
only.
yet. No.
Here only, yeah.
And the whiskey, is that to be bought in the shops?
The
yet,
whiskey, as I say, it's very early stages. We're just
Yeah.
getting it out there.
Okay.
It is available in the Celtic Whisky Store in Dawson Street, Dublin. They
Okay.
ship it worldwide for us.
Okay.
If you go into any of the off licenses here in Athlone, O'Brien's, any of the super
Okay.
venues, they'll all carry it.
Excellent,
All
yeah.
of the hotels carry our whiskey.
Okay.
Even the Hudson Bay Hotel put it on the porridge.
Okay, that's it. Thanks very much. That was
John,
very
lovely
informative.
to meet you.
That's
Very
brilliant.
welcome.
Thanks so much.